Well, hello, this is Jeff Gaudiosi, and you're on misplacedstraws.com where music comes to life. And my guest today is an absolute living legend. Without him, there is no Bruce Springsteen, Bob Seger, Alice Cooper, and there simply is no Detroit rock and roll. You know him from classics like Devil with the Blue Dress, Good Golly Miss Molly, Jenny Take a Ride, and countless others. But he's back now with a brand new record called With Love, and here to talk about it is the one and only Mitch Ryder. Welcome, Mitch.
Oh, hi. How are you today?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to have you on.
I really didn't care for you implying that I fathered Bruce Springsteen and all those other guys. Like you said, if there was no Mitch Ryder, there wouldn't be a Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah,
Not true. Even though I'm from the last century, I did not father them.
yeah, metaphorically, we'll say.
Okay.
Now, you mentioned you have a new record out called With Love. It's out everywhere now. You've not only been putting out music regularly over the past few years, but you put out original music. And after so many decades, what still drives you to create such high quality music?
You know, if I had the answer to that, I could retire. Uh, I just, it seems to me that there's always something new that I haven't touched, that I haven't uh, life experiences, or I'm talking about the things you use to write songs about. And I'm a big believer in writing songs about life experiences, especially when they're your own. And I've had a pretty full life, and there's so much to write about. And so I just keep marching in that direction, create something new and just keep going forward and don't worry about anything else.
Mhm.
You're doing what you feel you had to do, what God chose you to do, and this is what I'm trying to do is fulfill, my life's mission. So who knows how long it'll last? Well, it'll last until one day I pass, but you know,
Well, and you mentioned writing from life experience, and this record really takes the listener on a journey of your life. When you set out to do With Love, were you looking to do something autobiographical, or is that just where the songs took you?
no, that is where the songs took me.
And about a decade or so ago, you put out an actual autobiography, and you were really open about your life. When I listened
Oh,
to
you mean
this
the
record,
book? Are you
yes,
talking about the book? Oh, okay.
and this record to me kind of feels like a companion to that book, sort of like the musical version of your life.
Hmm. Yeah, to a big portion of it for sure.
Mhm.
But in the written book, the autobiography, there it goes a lot deeper into the unseemly parts of our business.
Yeah.
There's no industry in America that's guilt free of making mistakes and going back on their words or just doing all sorts of and hypocrisy and just you know right now the country's in search of a direction
Mhm.
and and I have to it's going to be funny because for people that are just getting into their productive ages in their 20s, they've established themselves in their jobs and whatever they're going to do. Uh, they think they've seen a lot, but they haven't seen nothing. I mean, I have lived through decades of this. And, when I was born, Dwight D. Eisenhower was president.
Mhm.
So I've been able to see a lot. And if they think this is crazy, they just need to look at history.
Yeah, it always comes back around.
Yep.
Now, back to the record, you have some pretty great people that work with you on this record. Who
Boy,
joins
didn't
you?
I.
Yeah.
That was
Who
so true.
who are some of the people you've worked with on this record?
Well, my favorite person to listen to on the record is McMurray, who plays the sax, and Louis Resto on keys. And these are all you have to understand that these are all musicians that are at the top of their game in Detroit and in the region. And they play nationally and they do their own tours. And I was so gifted for Don was the producer to pick these people. They are gentlemen and ladies that he works with um, on a regular basis because of their talent.
Mhm.
And so, um, but those two were the standouts for me. And then the guitar work on it is pretty cool too. Um, I don't know. I just love everybody there. Everybody came and we sat together, and they all told me why they came, and I was astounded that they would go ahead and declare that they came because it was a session by Mitch Ryder, and they normally wouldn't do that for just anybody, you know.
Yeah, well, you bring out the best, that's for sure.
In this case, I seem to think you're right.
And looking back at your career, I mean, it really took off after you hooked up with Bob Crew, who was famous for his work with the Four Seasons. But what was it in the collaboration with you and Bob Crew that really helped create the sound that was Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels?
I think it was his decision to put me and the band in the studio because his first recording was a recording of me without the Detroit Wheels. And it was a good R&B single, but it didn't go anywhere in the Hot 100. And two of the Rolling Stones happened to be in that session that most of the hits came from. And they suggested to Drew that he might be better served if he put out the recording of Jenny Take a Ride with the band. And so once he was talked into making that decision, then the hits started coming. So there was no magic chemistry other than to say that when he was in the studio, he brought a sense of energy. But us, being all of us still teenagers, we already had that sense of energy. So we took a very slow, sort of a cool, lazy rhythm song by um, who wrote that? Shorty Long on the soul label for Motown. And he asked us, well, do you guys know any songs that never became hits, but they're really cool songs? And we said, yeah, we know a ton of them. And we just started recording. So basically, there wasn't a real tie-in in terms of the music. Uh, and then you put on top of that Bob's personal agenda to make me a solo star and separate the group. That started from day one. As I explained, the first recording wasn't even with the group. And prior to that, I had released two records on my own that I had written and released in the Detroit area. So what I can thank Bob Crew for is being in a position to get that music played so the public could hear
Mhm. Yeah,
it.
and it worked.
Now don't get me wrong, he was brilliant when it came to working with the Four Seasons.
Mhm.
There is no doubt about their track record. But in terms of harnessing that energy from those teenagers from Detroit, which was me and the Wheels, he really didn't have a clue going in.
It, when you talk about you and the guys in the Wheels and even the band that you're working with now, all of these Detroit musicians, I love the idea of musical geography. And I think,
Of
I think most people, when they hear Detroit, the first thing they think is Motown. But
course,
you led the charge for Detroit rock. I mean, the MC5, Bob Seger, Iggy Pop, Alice Cooper, all of those guys grew out of what you and the Detroit Wheels created. I mean, how do you describe sort of the sound and the feel that is Detroit rock?
Oh, Detroit rock. Ah, well, first of all, this is a working class city. Not that that's what built Detroit.
Mhm.
It was the captains of industry that built Detroit, but the music, uh, that comes from working class kids that they just you only have a few ways if you're not wealthy and you're not upper middle class. There's only a couple routes out of Detroit if you don't want to work in a factory, and this is true in many cities that are not coastal cities. Um, you can either become a super athlete or you can become a performer. And so those are your two avenues out to, if you want to go see the rest of the country.
Mhm.
But to describe that music, before I had met the Wheels, which were called the Rivieras when I met them, um, I had a solo career. And that solo career was based wholly on immersing myself in the urban culture of the city of Detroit. And the first group I sang with, the group was a black group from Detroit called the Peps. And so I centered my studies, my direction, my motivations all came from that culture. The guys, on the other hand, that were in the group, they were more into rock and roll. And when we put those two together, it was a new sound, and nobody had heard that before. But as far as all the compliments go from other artists and people saying that, well, Mitch opened the door for them, I don't know about that. But if they say it, I'm honored that they're saying it, and I appreciate them saying it. But I was just doing what came natural to me. I had no reason to believe I was going to influence anybody.
Mhm.
I just wanted to have fun and sing and do music that made me feel good. And that's exactly what happened until the What Now My Love album, which caused the breakup between me and Bob Crew.
And what led to that? Was it staring into a direction you didn't want to go?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, he wanted to make me, well, you have to understand the generational system here. He was from a different generation, and his idea of being a success in America was to take a 7 month booking in Las Vegas.
Mhm.
And that certainly wasn't what my picture of what fame was going to look like. So that kind of explains that. Plus, he was from day one bent on making me a singular star and dismissing the group, in spite of the warning from the Rolling Stones.
Believe it or not, we're coming up on the 60th anniversary of those early hits. Jenny Take a Ride,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Loopy Loo. And they're still part of our culture. I saw Bruce Springsteen last August, and he still does the Detroit medley with all of your songs.
Well, God bless him.
What does it mean to you to have such a lasting impact on music and culture 6 decades later?
Um, well, it justifies my motivation to keep moving forward and to try something new. If you've got that kind of a track record, you don't want to stop. I don't want to stop unless something stops me. So, and at my age, that would probably be a health issue, but that has not occurred yet. I can still sing, and in fact, I'm writing for the next album as we speak. I'm not doing it right now at this table, but I'm working on it, and we're going to be doing that, and we're going to be doing another long tour in Europe coming up. In the meantime, we're taking bookings in America here, and we're pushing as best we can, given the fact that we don't have a major label behind us. We've got a rather impressive German label. They're not huge, but they do have the savvy and they do understand how it works in America. And so we're doing our best efforts to get exposure. But that, unless, as I said, unless you're part of the big machine, that's quite difficult to kick open those doors, to get that recording in a position where people can hear it in good rotation on good platforms and leave an impression, because there's not a darn thing wrong with that record. I love it.
It's a
It's
great record. Yeah.
yeah. And so that's all we're trying to do now is open doors that weren't open to us before, basically because, and I'll be honest about it, I don't feel old, but that's the reason that they're trying to, if we weren't independent contractors and we weren't self-employed, we could sue them for age discrimination.
Mhm.
But you
Yep.
can't do that in the music industry. And for a while, they even had categories in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for legendary artists
Mhm.
to present their work. They stopped that category. And so it just feels like old is not appreciated. But I maintain that no matter how old you are, if you're still producing, you're still hiring people to enter the workforce, you're still generating income, you're still moving that machine called money that keeps this country running, then I think you should be taken notice of and given an equal chance to be heard.
Without a doubt. And you mentioned the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It boggles my mind that you are not in that. You are one of the foundations of what that building is built on. Do you ever give it a thought of why am I not there?
No, because I understand why I'm not there. So I don't, it's somewhere at this point. There was a time before the building was even constructed. I met the person that the New York people had hired to be the curator for the museum. And he told me about his plan for the museum. And they didn't like it in New York because it wasn't where they wanted to go. What they're trying to do, in simple terms, is build a money-making business. But all you have to go down and do is go to Cleveland, hit the foot traffic count, see how successful that is for the tax-paying citizens of
Mhm.
Ohio, and then watch the extravaganzas that they put on TV, and you understand that it's a building, a business that's trying to grow and grow to the point where the original mission has become lost somewhere. And we're including all kinds of genres from all different places in the musical spectrum in America are now being called rock and roll. And because of that, I don't really have an aspiration to be a part of that.
Mhm.
I'm happy for my fellow musicians who are comfortable there, but that's not for me. It's nothing I'm looking to achieve.
I can understand that perfectly. Well, and you mentioned getting back to With Love for a second. You mentioned the possibility of doing some shows. Do you have anything booked yet in America, or are you still kind of
Yeah,
looking
no,
into
no,
it?
we have bookings.
Mhm.
We have bookings, and we just got two more offers. They're normal gigs that you would find not on a tour, not like a well-known household name act,
Yeah.
but the kind of gigs that guys that are in my generation, my age group, my peers, these are the kind of gigs we pick up, like casinos,
Mhm.
and we're doing outdoor fairs for cities, stuff like that. Some of them are soft tickets, some of them are hard tickets. Um, but it's not as rewarding as going to Europe and doing a tour. At the moment, we're trying to make it rewarding in America. We're trying our best to make it rewarding in America. But right now, I the tours I do in Europe, up until this last one, I never, and we're talking about 48 years
Mhm.
of every year going to Europe, um, except for the COVID year. and we never had to do the American hits. It was all based upon the catalog that I introduced to them uh, by appearing on one show that was viewed by 130 million people in Europe. It occurred once a year. It was called the Rock Palace.
Mhm.
And because of that performance and the way I conducted myself, which I'm now ashamed of, but the way I conducted myself personally was not very admirable, but the show was killer. And we were on that show with Southside Johnny and Muse Laughter. And we managed to steal the thunder. So I felt that that was the starting point of a separate but an alternate career. It coincided with my American career. And in the American career, you could see as you aged how fewer and fewer promoters wanted to work with you because they didn't believe, because of the age of your songs, that you could still draw crowds. But as you alluded to early in the interview, uh, those songs are still relevant.
Yeah.
So that's where we find ourselves at the moment,
Mm.
concentrating on doing Europe, but trying our best to get America.
Mm. Well, and hopefully we'll be able to catch you on the road soon. We've been spending some time here with the legendary Mitch Ryder. His record is called With Love. It is out everywhere now. I definitely recommend you give it a listen. It's a great record. Mitch, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It's been a pleasure to spend a few minutes with you, and best of luck with this record.
Yeah, and thank you for everything you've done for me today. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.